Facebook message. That's all it took. No gunman, no midnight raid, no violent abduction caught on camera. Just a simple message from a man claiming he had a job, a well-paying contract, transport money sent in advance, and an opportunity that looked like the answer to a struggling father's prayers. But what John Aram Ozzie didn't know was that someone had already chosen him. Weeks before he packed his bag, weeks before he boarded the bus, weeks before he ever arrived in Zaria, his name had already appeared on a list used by criminals, a list containing future victims, people marked for kidnapping, people marked for profit. And by the time John realized the job was fake, he was already disappearing into a forest where many entered, but not everyone came out. Tonight on Dark History Classified, we uncover the terrifying true story of how a Facebook job offer became a doorway into one of the most disturbing kidnapping operations in northern Nigeria, and why what John discovered inside captivity suggests that some victims are being hunted long before they ever vanish. John wasn't rich, he wasn't famous, he wasn't a politician, he was simply a hard-working Nigerian trying to provide for his family. Like millions of people across Africa, he occasionally advertised his skills online, hoping to attract new clients and better opportunities. One evening, a message appeared in his Facebook inbox. The sender claimed to be a businessman, polite, professional, respectful. He explained that he had found John's profile and believed he was the perfect person for an upcoming project. At first, John ignored him. The internet is full of promises. Most of them lead nowhere. But the stranger didn't disappear. Instead, he continued the conversation. Patiently, carefully, professionally. Every message seemed legitimate. The profile looked genuine. The photos looked authentic. Even mutual contacts appeared to exist. Nothing felt suspicious. And that was exactly what made the trap so dangerous. Because the best lies rarely look like lies. Over the next several days, the businessman continued building trust. The contract sounded promising. The payment sounded even better. For a man carrying the weight of family responsibilities, the opportunity felt impossible to ignore. Then came the moment that erased John's final doubts. The man sent transport money directly to his account. That changed everything. Most scammers ask for money. This man was giving it away. To John, that felt like proof. Proof that the opportunity was real. Proof that the client was genuine. Proof that his luck was finally changing. But sometimes, the most expensive trap is the one that costs the victim nothing. Before sunrise, John boarded a bus heading toward Zaria. As miles rolled by outside the window, he imagined what the future might look like. A successful contract, financial stability, less stress, a better life for the people waiting for him at home. Throughout the journey, the client stayed in contact. Every instruction was clear. Every detail sounded reasonable. Nothing seemed out of place. When John arrived, he was told to wait at a busy public location. The kind of place where danger shouldn't exist. The kind of place where people feel safe. Minutes later, a man approached him. The stranger knew his name, knew details from their conversations, and behaved exactly like someone arriving for a business meeting. Everything matched the story. Everything. Until he suggested moving somewhere else. The man explained that the project site was nearby, just a short motorcycle ride away. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming. Yet something didn't feel right. A small warning deep inside John's mind. The kind of instinct people often ignore. Then when they got to the new site, it was an uncompleted building with a gate. Then another man appeared. And in a single moment, the entire illusion collapsed. The second man wasn't carrying paperwork. He wasn't discussing contracts. He wasn't smiling. He was carrying a weapon. Suddenly, the friendly businessman vanished. The polite messages vanished. The job vanished. the truth emerged. There was never a contract, never a client, never a business opportunity, only a kidnapping. And John had walked straight into it. They blindfolded him, forced him onto a motorcycle, and drove for hours. The sounds of the city faded, traffic disappeared, civilization disappeared. Eventually, there was only silence and wilderness. When the blindfold finally came off, John found himself deep inside a remote forest in Zamfara state, a place feared by many Nigerians, a place where armed criminal groups had created hidden camps far from public view, a place where ransom had become an industry, and where human beings had become commodities. The questions began immediately. Who could pay? Who had money? Which relatives could be pressured? Which friends could be contacted? Which family members would panic enough to raise millions? To the kidnappers, John wasn't a person, he was an investment. Back home, the phone call arrived. The demand was staggering. 30 million naira, an amount designed not only to enrich the kidnappers, but to terrorize the family. Panic spread. Relatives borrowed money. Friends contributed what they could. People sold possessions. Some emptied savings, others begged for help. Every day felt like a race against death. Eventually, negotiations lowered the amount. 30 million became 6 million. But even after millions were gathered, the kidnappers demanded more. Because in captivity, the rules change whenever the criminals decide they should, and hope becomes another weapon. Days passed. Then John noticed something strange. The kidnappers seemed to know things they shouldn't know. Personal details, addresses, phone numbers, family information. Information that felt impossible for strangers to possess. At first he dismissed it, until one evening. 2 guards were arguing near a campfire, and one sentence stopped him cold. The informant in Joe's hasn't sent the next list. The next list. Not the next ransom, not the next payment, the next list. A list of names, future victims. People being selected before they were ever kidnapped. Suddenly, John's kidnapping no longer felt random. Because random victims don't appear on lists. Targets do. As the days passed, another horrifying pattern emerged. Many prisoners shared nearly identical stories. A fake job, a fake business opportunity, a fake investment, a fake contract, different lies, same ending. The victims had one thing in common: most were active online. Most advertised their services publicly. Most shared personal information without realizing who might be watching. The kidnappers weren't finding victims by accident. They were studying them, profiling them, selecting them, and hunting them. Then one evening, a pickup truck arrived at the camp. The men unloading supplies looked different. Cleaner, more organized, more professional. Not ordinary bandits. One of them opened a notebook. Inside were pages filled with names, phone numbers, addresses, potential targets, potential profits, potential kidnappings. The list was real, and then something happened that made John's blood run cold. A name was spoken. A familiar name. Someone he personally knew. A husband, a father, a businessman, and according to the conversation, he was next. For the first time, John understood the terrifying truth. The forest wasn't the operation. The forest was only the final destination. The real operation existed outside. Informants, recruiters, scouts, negotiators, social media profiles, fake businesses, fake opportunities. Every kidnapping was part of a larger system, a criminal network stretching far beyond the forest itself. And someone on the outside was feeding that network fresh victims every single day. Then the kidnappers made a mistake. Internal arguments erupted. Money went missing. Trust began collapsing. Weapons were drawn. Threats were exchanged. The gang was dividing itself from within. And where there is division, there is opportunity. But opportunity inside a kidnapping camp can be just as deadly as captivity itself. Late one evening, John noticed a guard he had never seen before. The man seemed nervous. He glanced over his shoulder repeatedly, then slowly approached the prisoners. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Be ready tomorrow night." That was all he said. No explanation, no details, no clues, just 4 words. "Be ready tomorrow night." Who was he? Why was he helping? Had security forces located the camp? Was an escape being planned? Or was this another trap? John didn't know, but as darkness swallowed the forest that night, he couldn't sleep. Because for the first time since his kidnapping, something was about to happen, something that would change everything. And before the next sunrise, some men inside that camp would never be seen again. You've been watching Dark History Classified. If you think this story is over, it's only just beginning. Because in part 2, John discovers who was supplying names to the kidnappers, a violent power struggle erupts inside the camp, and a desperate escape attempt turns the forest into a battlefield. Stay tuned, because what happened next sounds even more unbelievable than the kidnapping itself.